How did Amazon go from selling books and cheap socks to designer fashion, cloud services, and now into healthcare? How did Xbox go from $1 billion write-off, close to being irrelevant and frankly shut down by Microsoft, to a multi-million-dollar profit machine that now has an entertainment hub in many living rooms around the world, and their Connect technology with their camera is now used by doctors, surgeons around the world to teach other doctors, surgeons virtually how to perform operations. And then how do other companies fail? How do they go from remarkable dominant market share to irrelevance? So it's not the competition, it's not the market, it's not whatever's going on in the political landscape. There are executives in boardrooms all around the world looking out of the window this morning, reading the newspaper, checking online, and what they need to be doing, instead of looking out of the window, they need to turn around, look into the boardroom, look at themselves as a board and as an executive team, and look at how they are working. What I have found in my 26 years working with executives across the world, across executive teams where we have phenomenal results, great results, mediocre results, and disastrous results, is those companies who know how to form a symbiotic relationship between technical minds, creative minds, and business minds. These are the companies that are more successful. They grow faster, they innovate more, they respond better to challenges. What I am going to be doing for the next 29 minutes is sharing with you stories, tips, and ideas to help you think about how innovation is happening in your company and how you as a leader are leading. You are welcome to raise your hand. You might need to shout so I can properly see you. You can ask me questions, you can disagree with me, you can give me examples, you can ask for a friend. If you would prefer not to raise your hand and talk because your boss is in the room, that's fine. You can text me a question, that's okay too. Or you can catch me afterwards, I'm around till 3 o'clock today. So Amazon is fascinating and everyone wants to know everything about Amazon and emulate Amazon and know what's going to happen next and which city are they going to have HQ2 or HQ2 and 3, whatever it might be. I spent a year with Amazon on their fashion leadership team post Zappos acquisition when we were looking at how we take a company that previously never did marketing, never had gone into an industry behind to leapfrog ahead. And one of the things that I found truly fascinating is some of the elements that happen at Amazon that are so unique to Amazon. When you hear about it, you think they're crazy. You think that could never work. And then other people try and emulate Amazon, and honestly, sometimes I say, don't even try it, because it wouldn't work for your company. So when I tell you some of these things, you may not want to go implement them in your company tomorrow. There may be elements of it that you do, there may be parts of it that you do, but I'm going to share some of these criteria that make Amazon truly innovative in how they lead and how they manage. First of all, they are vocally self-critical. And Jeff Bezos actually wrote the phrase that describes vocally self-critical, and it says, "I don't believe that my own body odor nor that of my team smells of perfume." Not the prettiest of visions, but what he means by that is you have to say when what you have done isn't good enough. You have to say when you've maybe missed the mark. You have to admit when something hasn't gone as it should. And so what that actually looks like, because you know what it's like, you see all these fabulous visions and values and pictures and posters on corridors, and really, does it really happen in real life? Well, it does. And so I was there in my first couple of weeks, and I'm sat in a meeting with 2 vice presidents, and they're reviewing moving the warehousing and the whole supply chain system from one city to another part of the country. And one VP sits there and goes, you know what? I really haven't done a great job in the way that we made sure that we got the right cost efficiencies out of this move. And she was sat there with maybe 6 of her team. And the other VP says, well, that might be true, but you know where I really screwed up? What I should have done is made sure 3 months ago that we'd done this. And I looked around completely confused, expecting everyone to start covering themselves and saying, well, it wasn't me, it was them, and doing this. But no, there was just this unbelievable level of openness and honesty. And that level of candor is true throughout all of Amazon. When you're set to promote someone, you have to list in the promotion form the best reason not to promote someone, to make sure you truly understand the things they need to work on, not just the things that they are fabulous for. Number two, the second way that Amazon is truly unique is by their use of silence. Kind of uncomfortable, isn't it? I did that for about 4 seconds, and you were probably all thinking, has she forgotten her words? What's going on? How much longer is this going to take? There's a lot of silence in Amazon, and there's silence at the start of every meeting. Could you imagine going into a meeting where you may sit there for 10, 12 minutes in silence? And what's happening is there has been a document produced that is either a 2-pager or a 6-pager that outlines fully the strategy that you're reviewing, the decision you're trying to make, the new project or proposal that you're trying to get buy-in for. And for the first time when you sit down, everybody gets the paper and does this. Now, I'm not very good at sitting still, so I'd spent 9 years at Microsoft, moved from Microsoft to Amazon in my corporate days, and I used to have to sit on my hands because it was so strange. And literally after 5 or so minutes, someone will say, has everyone all finished? And someone will go, no, need a couple more minutes. And so they'll sit there and carry on reading. And then the beauty of what happens next is by the time the conversation starts, by the time the decisions start, everybody has all the facts and all the information that they need. And you're not trying to respond to someone who's jumped ahead in the PowerPoint presentation and it's a few slides ahead. There's no confusion there. So that's another unique aspect that's very different to Amazon. The third and final way is truly how they pay attention to their talent. They pay attention to talent when they look at their creative abilities, their technical abilities, and their business minds. So Jeff Bezos is a brilliant business guy, and he knows he maybe isn't the most creative, and he isn't always the most technical, so he surrounds himself with the right people. So if I was to ask you now about your CEO, I'm not asking you to share. You can tell me privately later if you wish, or send me a text. If I was to ask you, is your CEO a creative genius, a technical genius, or a business genius? So just hold that thought for a moment. Now, scan your executive team. Is there a technical bias? Is there more creative people at the leadership table or on the board? What about business minds? And then think about the significant decisions that you have made recently as a company, whether it's acquisitions, whether it's growth, whether it's deciding to divest a particular business or invest in a certain way. Think about who you've promoted lately. Think about who are the people who have the power in the company. Is it weighted one way or the other? Is there one particular part of the business that doesn't get a strong voice? And if you have that imbalance, it's going to be harder to innovate, and it's going to be harder to grow faster, and it's going to be harder to hire all of those geniuses you need in order to be able to accelerate and grow. One of the other unique things about companies who are able to grow and innovate is how they are able to look at themselves and be willing to make changes. Yesterday I talked in depth about leading and managing change. I have a video of that. If anybody wants it, let me know, and I'm happy to send you that kind of deep dive on managing change. But one of the things I worked with Starbucks, when they were incredibly innovative in what they were selling in stores. So, a lot of their money now isn't made just simply from coffee. It's all of the other things that you see in those beautiful glass counters and all of the products that you see in their little mini stores. One of the things they realized is they were incredibly innovative in their stores. But then when you went into their headquarters and you sat in some of their meetings, there wasn't a lot of innovation happening in meetings. And when I first started working with a few of their executives, they were saying something that many executives say to me. They physically showed me their calendar, on their phone, and it looked like a bad game of Tetris that you've lost, where you've got triple book, double book, blocks of squares all over the place, completely taken over. Then I'd sit in and observe some of their meetings, and frankly, it was kind of a bit like a spectator sport, that there was, a couple of rings of people that were the meeting, and then there was the observers around the edges, and there wasn't clear things that were happening. And one of the things that I said to them that kind of shocked them is I said, you can reduce your meeting investment by 75%. And they looked at me and went, don't be so stupid. And I said, you can. And I'll ask you these two questions. When you have meetings, half of the meetings are not needed. Of those meetings that are needed, you only need half of the attendees there. So immediately, you can free up so much time and capacity in your meetings. So that's one of the things we did at Starbucks. And so it gave people a freedom to say no to meetings, to make sure some of the fundamentals that this isn't rocket science, this isn't anything that you don't already know, but it's amazing how I have a 100-year-old house, and we've got bamboo in the back garden. And if you ever think about planting bamboo in your garden, call me first, because it's a disaster. The roots go everywhere, and you can't get rid of them. And that's what meetings are like. Like, they grow, and they poke out. And, I wish I knew who the person was who was the engineer who invented reoccurring meetings at Microsoft. Because I tell you, I want to call that person up and say, you have ruined productivity for so many people, because those reoccurring meetings just sit on your calendar and last forever, and people don't challenge them. There's a product vice president at Instagram. When he joined, he caused chaos because he cancelled every reoccurring meeting in his division of 2,000 people. And people were freaking out. But what he did was he just pressed reset. So I encourage you to think about, what does your calendar look like? How much innovation are you doing day to day? One of the things that, the executives I work with do is they plan, like in a simple pie chart, where do you want to be spending your time? On a typical year, a typical month, a typical week, a typical day. If you were to think through what your typical day looks like, how much silence and space do you have for innovation? How much free time are you creating for yourself and for your team? I worked with a CIO a few months ago, and he'd not long been in his job. He'd been there for a few months, and he had a global team of 150 people. And I asked him one question I encourage you all to think about. When did you last physically have all of your people in a room together? I don't mean any of this marvelous technology that you have where you can sort of see people on video conference and sort of hear people on teleconferences if it all works delightfully. I mean physically in a room where you can say hello to them and give a handshake. Because you all know the power of it, because otherwise you wouldn't all be showing up to these events for the last 10 years. And Avanta wouldn't be so successful in being able to get busy executives like you in a room to say hello. You'd just all be having video calls. So think about, when did you last have your team together? And then when you do have your team together, what do you do with them? How much space are you giving them? How much context are you giving them? As technical leaders, you need to be trilingual. You need to be a trilingual executive, which means, of course, you can talk technology, but you also need to master talking business, which many people say, yeah, as an IT leader, as a CIO, I'm really working on, how I'm talking about business outcomes. But the third area no one is talking about is how you talk creative. How are you talking with your chief marketing officer, your chief design officer, any of those radically creative people that you have in your company? What's your relationship like with them? How are you understanding and influencing the product strategy? How are you understanding and partnering with your key marketing people? Because if you are trilingual, you will send a message to your team that it is more than just being a brilliant technical leader. It is about, how do you build those relationships? So when you think about bringing your team together, how are you building understanding and awareness of everything that's going on in the company? This CIO who brought all of his global leadership team, global IT team together. Some of the people in his team had been there for 23 years, and they last came to HQ 15 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and they've been out. And one of them, I told this story yesterday. One of them was over in Holland, and I overheard, because I'm nosy sometimes, I overheard him telling the CIO, and he was like, I have to admit, I've been talking to headhunters. I've been talking to headhunters because it's kind of lonely out there, and it's kind of frustrating because we're doing all of this digital transformation and all this technology, and the business leaders are shouting at me, and I never met you before, and I don't know my team. And then he came over, and we created this innovation idea experiment. And he said, we've just come up with a new way to increase revenue in EMEA. I'm really excited now. So think about, if you could just influence one person staying on your team. There's a lot on the agenda about fight for talent and keeping key people. I got news for you. It doesn't matter whether Amazon's coming here or not. The number one reason why people will stay or go from a company is what? Their boss. Research shows it time and time again. So whether Amazon decides this is going to be their new HQ or it's going to be another city or whoever may come, the immediate boss is who influences whether someone stays or whether someone goes. And so one of the things for you to think about is, how much of a magnet are you? How much of a magnet are you as an executive? And are you keeping people or are you repelling them? And, I was sitting at dinner with a few executives last night, and they were talking about how, they wanted to be able to move on some key talent, and there was resistance in the company. And so you understanding who you need as talent for your future growth is really important, so that you can make sure that you're attracting the right people, keeping the right people, and raising that bar for performance. If anyone has any questions, please shout them out. Otherwise, I've got a long list here that I'm just going to keep telling stories. And I never told you, I assume silence is complete agreement with me. So silence is fine with me, but you can also raise your hand and ask me questions. I believe we have roving mics if anybody needs them. There's a few more things that are important about this trilingual executive. And I don't know whether you've ever found this, but sometimes I see when technical, creative, and business leaders are trying to talk together, it's a little bit like you've landed in France and you're trying to talk Japanese. And what do people do when they're in a different country and they're not understood? They talk louder and slower and hope that somebody is going to listen. Now, I'm not suggesting that you shout at your creative peers at all, but there needs to be different translation mechanisms. And I'm going to share with you one of them that's really simple that you can apply straight away. My daughters are heavily into graphic novels right now. And when you're reading one of those graphic novels or a traditional cartoon, you have the speech bubble, and then you have the thought bubble. And then at the bottom, it's telling you what's really going on. Think about a conversation that didn't go just as you wanted it to in the last few weeks. I wonder what your thought bubble was when it wasn't going as you wanted it to. Or what you were really trying to achieve from that conversation. And did you share your thought bubble? Or did you share what you were really trying to achieve from the conversation? 3 magic words whenever you're entering into a conversation you think is going to get lost in translation. 3 magic words. My intention is. So you're trying to have a difficult budget conversation. My intention here is to help you understand my program, so hopefully you'll support this new investment. Having a difficult feedback conversation with an employee. My intention here is to give you clear feedback so you can improve and understand what I really need from you. Think about how you share your intention with difficult conversations, or where you think, sometimes when you look at someone and you know that they're confused, or that they're looking over there, or they're not paying attention, or they're looking at their phone, or they're in another world. Share your thought bubble. I'm thinking here because I'm just thinking that you're not really I'm not doing a good job of explaining myself. Have I got that right? And they might say, no, I'm fine. I was just thinking about the fact that the Red Sox beat the Dodgers and, I was just in another world. By the way, I think the only reason that I got brought here was because I live in Los Angeles now, and they knew what was going to happen with the World Series, and you just wanted to, have an opportunity to laugh. I don't know. I'm wearing Dodgers blue for a reason. I don't know who was here yesterday, but Wally was here. Did you see Wally? Anyone who's here? You missed him. You got the mayor. CISO's got Wally. Talk to the Avanta people. I don't know. Anyway, but here's another example of how an innovative leader, what they do during times of failure. They stand by their team. So think about, when did your team last fail? And I'm not suggesting you go give people pay rises and bonuses for simply screwing something up, but are you rewarding failure? Are you acknowledging it? Are you still showing a love for your team, go Dodgers, or are you backtracking and pretending that it wasn't really you and you didn't think it was such a good idea anyway, and you physically remove yourself from the idea and the project itself? So how you manage and respond to failure, your team will notice. So think about, where do you have challenges in this translation between creative, technical, and business minds? The first book I wrote was Thoughtfully Ruthless. And a key part of how you make this translation as a technical leader is how you spend your time, your energy, and your resources. And it's very easy to focus on the resource side and say, I'm managing my team, I'm managing my budget, I'm managing all my technical investments, all my vendor spend. But how are you looking at the number one thing that you can control, which is you? You control where you spend your time. You control your energy levels. And if at 8:20 on a Wednesday morning, when maybe you had a delightful dinner last night and stayed up a little too late, how are your energy levels right now? If you were a battery, we're obsessed with these battery packs. I have 3 disposable, rechargeable battery packs for my phone in my handbag right now. I'm obsessed with making sure my devices are stay charged, and, I've got a long flight home back to LA today, and, I can't possibly be without power. We're obsessed. There's a million different devices available on Amazon right now that you can buy to keep all your devices charged. But what about your own battery levels? How are the energy levels of you as individuals? I'm not going to ask you to share, you can just imagine. But are you at 100% green, fully charged right now? 50%? 20% low battery? Red danger zone is coming. And then what does your phone do when you're in low battery mode? Preserves energy. How? Shuts everything, shuts down non-core activities. What do we do when we're in low battery mode? Shout it out. What do we do? Go to sleep? I would hope so. But what in reality do many people do? Keep going. Have caffeine, have sugar, punch through it. If you're not at 100% fully charged right now, or your team isn't, we're talking about digital transformation. The life of switching to physical products to digital products creates this endless cycle of on that didn't exist 10 years ago, 5 years ago. You used to be able to sit in your office and there'd be a knock at the door, a piece of mail on your desk, or the phone would ring. Now we have 17 different ways to buzz us, ping us, connect with us, DM us, and you've got multiple inputs that you're all managing. How are the energy levels of you and your team, and how are you keeping those energy levels up? The energy piece of thoughtfully ruthless leaders is really essential. A thoughtful leader and a ruthless leader are the 2 modern myths of leadership. You either need to be thoughtful and well-liked and loved and have a followership and everyone wants to work with you, or you've got to be ruthless, Game of Thrones, like a sledgehammer, coming in and culling and making tough decisions. Neither is true. What you have to do is you have to find out the true voice of who you are as a leader and manage intentionally how you spend your time, your energy, and your resources. And I will tell you, the collective you as technical CIOs are simply brilliant. You know, I listened to your presentations. I've seen, you know, I did some Google stalking of some of you in the room as to the achievements that you've made. I have to say, you're all pretty brilliant. But what you are not good at is you are not brilliant at demonstrating your brilliance. You don't own your successes enough. You don't translate your technical expertise and your technical projects into true business impact. Think about the achievements that you've made and talk about them in terms of revenue, market share, cost savings, significant company product gains. I've seen your LinkedIn profiles. Maybe you've got all this brilliance hidden somewhere else and it's not on the Google search. But if you truly want to be that magnet leader that attracts the brilliant and keeps the amazing talent in your company, you have got to capture that business translation of the impact that you are making. And you've got to own it, not in a ridiculous, look at me, I'm amazing, I'm over the top kind of way, because we all know those people, right? We all know those, you know, I get these phone calls a lot where someone calls me and says, Val, I can't believe who just got promoted. I can't believe who got that job over there. You won't believe it. I worked with them 3 years ago and they were not very good. You see those people? You know those people? I'm not suggesting that you go over the top, but I do suggest you claim your own success. You claim the impact that I know that you are having on the business, and you just share it with people. And that you are able to become more brilliant at demonstrating your brilliance, because if you do, you will elevate your leadership team, you will elevate your whole IT organization so that you are able to create something unique. I'm going to switch sports analogies for you for a minute. Who knows Liverpool Football Club? Football, the real football, you know, not the funny shaped ball football, right? Okay. All right, Liverpool Soccer Club. Who knows what the catchphrase or motto is of Liverpool Football Club? You'll never walk alone. Thank you very much. You'll never walk alone. The new CEO of Liverpool Football Club used to run Xbox. Then he ran Electronic Arts. And he is a Scouser. He's from Liverpool. He's originally from England. And he spent 25 years in the US. And he's just gone back to talk about dream job, talk about loving his work. He's just gone back to run his boyhood dream football club back in England. And Peter exemplifies a thoughtfully ruthless leader because he knows when to say no. He knows how to manage his time. He is unbelievably brilliant at demonstrating his brilliance. He knows how to laugh at himself. Google South Park Peter Moore. It's a really funny episode. He appeared in his own South Park show. I mean, that's how incredible he is, and great marketing for him. I want you to think about how it is as a leader for you right now running your company with all of the challenges and all the opportunities you have. It's lonely. It's lonely, and what you have to do is make connections. You have to have opportunities like Avanta provides, where you can connect with people, where you build your inner circle, because I don't want you to ever have to walk alone. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of today.